going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. Let's talk about what's going on with MLB. We got a lot of trades going on with the trade deadline in 3 days. I'll get to that shortly, but first let's go over to do a standings update as we are pretty close to like the home stretch of the season. It's July 28th, so we're in the back 9 of the MLB season. American League East, Orioles have now taken over first place. They're a game and a half ahead of Tampa. 63-40 on the year. Tampa's a game and a half back. They've been struggling. I saw a stat. They started off the season 30-9. So they won 30 of their first 39 games. So they're now 63-43. Meaning, so after winning 30 of their first 39, they are now 33-34 over the last 67 games, I believe. I'm terrible at math. I believe that math came out to correct. So over the last 67 games, they're a game under 500. That's not very good. It's crazy because the Rays, they still have the second best record in the American League and the third best record in all baseball. So they're record-wise, they're a top 3 team in baseball, but they've played 106 games, and for about 60% of the season, they've been a average team. Based off their record, that's crazy. They're a game under 500 over the last 67 games. They won 30 of their first 39. That's the thing in baseball. If you have to look a great start like that, like if you win 30 of your first 40, if you're 20 games over 500 through 40 games, you could play 500 the rest of the way, which is 20 games worse from like most of the season for the next 122 games, and still make the playoffs. Hell, you might still win 90 games. If 20 games over 500 and MLB for a season is 91 wins, which usually at least gets you a wild card spot. So Rays, I assume we'll at least get in. We'll start looking at the playoff picture more in-depthly over the next week or two. I have another week of my summer job, so after today, I'll do next Saturday, and I'll probably do Monday through Friday, probably for like 3 or 4 weeks until I go back to school, and I'll have to figure out. I'll have the studio back, and hopefully it's at least 3 or 4 days a week, if not 5. But good news, we'll have the studio back, but that's a long ways away. Anyway, back to MLB standings. Toronto is in third place in American League East, 58-46. They're 5.5 games out. You got the Boston Red Sox are in fourth place, 54-47. They've been playing really well. They've won 5 in a row. And then you have the Yankees in last place. The Yankees are in dead last. They're 2 games out of fourth place, 54-49 on the season in last place. Have been struggling. They've lost 9 in the last 15 games. Offensively, they've really struggled. The rotation behind Cole isn't great. Armand's been inconsistent. Obviously, if you threw a perfect game, you see, honestly, recently has been the tail of his season. He gave up 17 runs over 2 starts. Then he threw a perfect game. Then his last up before the All-Star break, he threw 6 really good innings. Again, Aaron Boone pulled him really early in the bullpen, blew it. And then his last start against the Mets, he gave up 6 runs in 6 innings. So he'll have a couple of really good starts, a couple of really bad ones. He's been up and down. Clark Schmidt's pitched pretty well. He had to a rough start, but lately he's been pitching well. He hasn't had very good run support, so his record isn't great. And the ERA still is at 4.4, 4.3, which isn't fantastic, but it was at close to 5, not over 5 earlier in the year. It's come down a lot. And, Rodon's only made 4 starts, hasn't looked great overall. First one was okay, then he struggled for 2 starts against the Mets, pitched okay, a little bit better. And Severino's has been god-awful since they got him back in late May. And the bullpen, which for most of the year was fantastic, despite all their injuries, is been struggling. So they're a bit of a tough stretch. They lost 2 or 3 of the Cubs to end the All-Star break. Lost 2 or 3 of the hapless Rockies coming out of the All-Star break. Got swept by the Angels, who at the time were struggling. They swept the Royals, who have one of the worst records ever right now. So the kind of a get-me-right series. They split with the Mets in a 2-game set, and they lost 1-0 last night to the Orioles. Aaron Judge did come back. His first came back was 0-for-1 with 3 walks, so didn't have a hit, but did draw 3 walks in his first game since June 3rd, in almost 2 months. But offense couldn't get anything going. Their Cole put 7 score innings, but the offense didn't help them out. Walk-off homer from Anthony Santander. So they're still in last place. And 5 games over 500 in last place is tough. If they were in the American League Central, they'd be like a half game ahead of Minnesota for first place. But they're in a really tough division, and they are definitely underperforming to this point. American League Central, speaking of that division, Twins in first place, 54 and 51. They've lost their last 3, but overall played very well since the All-Star break. Right now, 3 games over 500 in first place. 3 games over 500 shouldn't put you in first place on July 29th. I think it's July 28th, the start of this. It's July 29th, actually. But the division is just so bad. They're in first place. Cleveland's a game and a half behind them. They're at 500 right now, 52 and 52. Got Detroit at 46 and 58 is in third place. They're 7.5 games out of the division. There's talks of Michael Lorenzen, who was an all-star. He's got an ERA a little over 4, should make him an all-star. Overall, he's had a decent year as one of their better starting pitchers. And he heard he might get free agent at the end of the season. He might get traded. Heard Baltimore's interested in, Miami's interested. We'll see what happens. The White Sox, who've been selling off, they've been horrible. 42 and 63, and the Orioles are 30 and 75. Have just been out of it forever. American League West is getting really tight. A lot of tight divisions. You look at the American League, every division, there's only a 2-game difference from the top 2 teams. Baltimore leads Tampa by only a game and a half. Minnesota leads Cleveland by only a game and a half. American League West, Texas leads Houston by 2 games. Right now, Texas at 16-44, Houston's at 58-46. Angels are at 54 and 50 after losing 14 of 19. They've now won 8 of their last 10. Gotten to 54 and 50, 4 games over 500. They're 6 games out of the division, which isn't horrible. Seattle's been playing well, 53 and 50, 3 games over 500. I believe they have the second best win percentage in July. They've been playing well lately. 3 games over 500. Only 6.5 games out of that division. Texas is a good team. They're only 6.5 games behind them. And then obviously Oakland 29 and 76. Worst team in the league. They're a game, I'm going to say ahead or behind. They're a game ahead of Kansas City for best odds, #1 pick, I guess. And the bottom 3 teams all have the same odds. They're a game ahead of Kansas City, like a tank bowl, I guess you want to say. Both teams are god-awful. National League East, Atlantic still rolling, 65 and 36, best record in all of baseball. They lead National League East by 10 games over the Philadelphia Phillies. 4 in second, 56 and 47. Miami has been struggling, 56 and 48. I think they might have the worst record in baseball since the All-Star break. I think they entered the break the first wild card. I think they're like a half game out of the last spot now. But hanging in there, 56 and 48. Mets 49 and 54. They've played a tiny bit better. They've had a decent July after a horrible June, but still 5 games under 500 on July 28 and 29 is a major disappointment. Then the Washington Nationals are 43 and 61, of course, suck. National League Central, Milwaukee Brewers, 57 and 47, been playing very well since the All-Star break. They're in first place. They're a half game ahead of the Reds right now, who after a great finish to that first half of the season, came out a little slow of the break, but have played phenomenal lately. 1-7 of 10. 57 and 40, actually, I believe, are the last team in the National League right now. And the Chicago Cubs have won 7 games in a row. They're now a game over 500, 52 and 51. Only 4.5 games out of first place. They're expected to sell. They're after Cody Bellinger, who's had a big bounce back year, has had a great season. He's got a mutual. He's might have a mutual option, so he'll probably be a free agent at the end of the year. And Marcus Stroman, who's been slumping a bit of late, but overall has had a really good year. Sub-4 ERA this year. All-star count, both are all-star caliber players. Stroman has a player option he can decline based off the way he's performed this far. Will probably decline it. It's a $20 million, maybe a touch more. You can probably get a little more on the market based off what he's done the last couple of years and what he's done this year. And now, the expectation they were going to trade him because they were not kind of out of the race, but now they've gotten hot and they've got themselves back into the race. Maybe do you decide that they're kind of rethinking things? They might not sell. It sucks for a lot of teams, like for example, the New York Yankees were interested in Cody Bellinger appears to be one of their top trade targets at the trade deadline, and he might not be getting traded. Marcus Schroen's has had a lot of suitors, and he might not get moved either. St. Louis Cardinals 46 and 59, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates 45 and 58 round out that division. National League West, Los Angeles Dodgers 58 and 44 in first place. San Francisco's 3 games back in that division, 6 and 40. They haven't been playing great, but they're hanging in there. Or 3 games out. Arizona's been struggling. They're in first place for most of the first half. Dodgers can take over first place to maybe a week before the All-Star break. Arizona 55 and 49. They were 4 games out of that division. San Diego, overall been a major disappointment for that team. Playing a little bit better, 50 and 54 on the year, 9 games out of first. Season's not over. We'll see what they do with trade deadline. They got 2 guys who they could get a lot for who are going to be free agents. Josh Hader, who might be the best reliever in baseball, and then Blake Snell, who's one of the best starting pitchers in baseball. He's got a sub-3 ERA. He's got an ERA under 1 since like the beginning of June or something. And then you got the Colorado Rockies also being dead last. Also, San Diego probably isn't going to do it, but said they're going to listen to Juan Soto, who only about a year ago gave up a king's ransom for, only 24 years old, had a great season. He got to a really bad start. It was hit like 170 in the middle of May. Since then, has been typical Soto. Heard they would listen to because he's got 1 more left on his deal. They haven't extended him yet. They got a huge payroll. So we'll see what happens. But that's what the MLB standings looks like right now. Now let's talk about all the trades that have happened in MLB. We have some smaller ones, some larger ones. The Dodgers make a trade. They pick up Amed Rosario from the Cleveland Guardians. They send Nolan Syndergaard in exchange. Rosario hasn't had the best season. He was an all-star caliber player last year. Had a great year last year. This year, 3 homers, 40 RBIs, hitting 265. Only a 306 on base and a 369 slug, which is pretty bad. And a 675 OPS. So this was heading into like a day or two ago. So that might be slightly altered, lose the slash line. But he hasn't had a great year. A down year after a really good year last year. It's funny how they were both former Mets. The Cleveland got Rosario 2 years ago in the Francisco Lindor trade. One of the main pieces along with Andres Giménez. Rosario had a really good year last year, best year of his career, but it's taking a step back this year. And with him being on the brink of free agency, they moved him. I mean, it's weird. Cleveland's only a game and a half out of first place. They're a 500 team because of how bad the division is. In the American League Central, they're only a game and a half out of first place, and they traded Rosario away. So, I mean, he wasn't having a great year. I probably would have kept him because you still could have re-signed him. He's coming off a down year, so his value is going to be a little bit lower. If he played like he did last year, this year, he would have gotten a big contract. A guy who's in his prime, shortstop. He would have gotten the bag. He would have easily cleared 100 million and may have even pushed 200. But the way he's going right now, he'll probably still get a decent contract. He's still very young. He's still young. He's in his prime. He's shown in the past he's got a chance to be an all-star caliber player. Obviously with the Mets, when he first came up, we were like, oh, can he play shortstop? He's quieted those concerns for the most part. He's a good enough shortstop. He's shown that he can be a great hitter. I think he'll get a decent multi-year deal unless he wants to. He might get more if he takes like a 1-year prove-it deal and bets on himself to rebound maybe the year after get a long-term deal. So he probably either does that or he'll take a solid 3-year deal or something. But they didn't want to lose him for nothing, I guess. So they moved him. I would have hoped they would get a little bit more in return. Well, he has not a great year, but he is a very good player who's just having a down year. Syndergaard was here in 12 starts, over 7. He's completely washed. He's been injured for a while. Like that's who he got back. Syndergaard this year, 12 starts, is 1 in 4 of a 7.16 ERA. Has just 38 strikeouts and 55 in a third, a whip of 1.44. So he's been atrocious. And he's currently hurt. So they basically gave him away for free, which I don't understand. At least ask for give me a serviceable prospect in AA. Give me, a team that's really struggled offensively. Give me a decent hitting prospect in AA at least. Even if he's 2 or 3 years away. Give me something. So he gets moved. Dodgers stayed busy. They picked up Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly from the White Sox. In return, they sent Trace Thompson, Nick Nastrini, and Jordan Leisure. Lynn has had a rough year this year. 21 starts, 6-9 this year, 6.47 ERA, 144 strikeouts, 119 2/3, but a 1.46 WHIP, which is really ugly. He 2 years ago was finished third in the American League Cy Young vote. And overall, has had a really good career. Kind of been an underrated pitcher. Always been like a top 10 to 15 starter in the league for the most part when you really look at his numbers. But the last 2 seasons has had some injuries and has not pitched very well. But he goes to the Dodgers. They also get Joe Kelly, who reunites with the Dodgers. He hasn't had a good year this year. 31 games out of the bullpen, 4.97 ERA, 41 strikeouts in 29 innings, 1.3 WHIP. He hasn't had a great year, but he's been around a while. He was with the Dodgers before. He was on the 2020 team and won the World Series. He's been around the block. He was in Boston at one point. He's been with the White Sox for a few years. He's had a nice career. He's famous for when he struck out one of the Astros players. Of course, Dodgers and Astros have a clash a lot because the Astros beat them in the World Series when they cheated in 2017. He made that sad face. It was either Correa or Bregman, and it started the whole thing. That was an iconic moment in MLB history, if you ask me. He goes to the Dodgers. Don't get a ton back because you got 2 struggling guys on expiring contracts, veterans. You got Trace Thompson, who's been terrible this year. He's in 71 at bats, hitting 155. You get 2 prospects back. You get back a starting pitching prospect in Double-A and Nick Nastrini. Been okay in Double-A. 17 starts, 4.03 ERA, 85 strikeouts, 37 walks, and 73 2/3 in Double-A. And they get the reliever they got back is pretty good. Jordan Leisure is both are right-handers. He's a reliever in Double-A. In 29 games out of the bullpen, a 3.09 ERA, 56 strikeouts, only 16 walks in 35 innings. So not a ton back, but they get back a White Sox team. I mean, the team is terrible. They really need to do some retooling. They have a lot of veterans on the team who aren't that good anymore. The couple they traded away, a couple are still there. Tim Anderson's had a really rough year after a couple of really strong years. The only guy who's really played like the back of his baseball card is Luis Robert, who's obviously one of the game's best young players. Other than that, they've been absolutely terrible this year. They definitely need some changes, and they appear to be making them. They take on a starting pitcher in Nastrini, who may have potential. Maybe in a year or two could be an option, a rotation option, and then Leisure in a year, maybe next year could be an option out of the bullpen. The Astros made a trade with the White Sox as well. They acquire Kendall Graveman, who they had recently, a couple of years ago. They bring him back. He's had a good year out of the bullpen. 45 games, 3.48 ERA, 42 strikeouts in 44 innings, 1.2 WHIP. He also has 8 saves. They add him to an already good bullpen. They add him. They send Corey Lee the other way. Corey only 25 at-bats this year. He just 192 and only 25 at-bats. But he's a young catcher the White Sox can evaluate. Their catcher right now is Yasmani Grandal, who's older. I think might be on an expiring contract. Appears to be the possibility he could trade it as well before trade deadline on Tuesday. So now they at least get a young player they can evaluate. So Houston picks up him. Graveman is sent up by the White Sox. And then the Angels made a big move. They acquired Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez from the White Sox for a couple of prospects. We'll get to them shortly. Lucas Giolito in 21 starts this year, 6-6, 3.79 ERA, 131 strikeouts, 121 innings, a WHIP of 1.22. A couple of years ago, he was emerging as looked like a stud in the making, a future Cy Young winner. In 2021, he had a pretty good year. He was not very good last year. He struggled last year, ERA of almost 5, but has had a bounce back year this year. It's been solid this year. He hasn't quite been into like the 8th we thought he was going to be, but I think a very good second or third starter in pretty much any rotation. Very good starting pitcher who's going to be a free agent. The White Sox move him to the Los Angeles Angels. They also get Ronaldo Lopez, who was a top pitching prospect who came up with Washington. Him and Julia were traded to the White Sox in the Adam Eaton trade a bunch of years back. He never worked out as a starter. Has been a little better as a reliever. Not fantastic. In 43 games, 4.29 ERA, 52 strikeouts and 42 innings, 1.3 rep. He's been okay. Angels did get the White Sox did get a pretty good return. They got the Angels' second and third best prospect. They got a catcher in Edgar Cuero. Which Sox again, they need a catcher. They picked up Corey Lee, looking for their catcher of the future. Picked up Corey Lee from Houston, and then Graveman trade. Now they pick up Edgar Cuero from the Angels. He is the Angels' second best prospect and the 65th best in all of baseball. And they also get a left-handed pitcher in Kai Bush, who was the Angels' third best prospect, not in the MLB top 100, but the third best prospect in the Angel system. So a pretty good return for the White Sox on that. And there was some more smaller trades. Yeah, Carlos Santana, Pittsburgh, moves him to Milwaukee for a minor league shortstop, what I've never even heard of, Johnny something. Santa's had an okay year this year. 235 batting average, 12 home runs, 53 ribbies, 732 OPS, been okay. He's older at the end of his career, but still a decent power bat who can play first base. I'm sure he'll DH a bit. So he goes to Milwaukee. The Mets traded David Robertson to the Miami Marlins. On 40 games, Robinson's had a great year for the Mets, being one of the lone bright spots in an overall bad team and a really bad bullpen. 205 ERA, 48 strikeouts in 44 innings, whip just barely above 114 saves. Goes Miami. The Mets get back two prospects. They get back Marco Vargas. Both of them are in rookie ball. Marco Vargas, I believe, is a shortstop, middle infielder. The 18th best prospect in the Marlins system this year in 33 games, hit 283 of 877 OPS, 2 homers, 19 ribbies. Get back a catcher in Ronaldo Hernandez, Miami's 21st best prospect. And rookie ball, he's hitting 298 with a 916 OPS, 3 homers, 25 RBIs. As a Mets fan, I didn't love the trade. Look, the Mets are, I can't imagine even if they kept the team together, they would have made the playoffs. They're playing a little bit better, but they still aren't, they're not a very good team. The rotation is when we thought the rotation's been a little bit better. You know, Senga's been pitching great. Verlander's been a little bit better, sure, but Scherzer has been great. And Quintana just got back. 2 starts has been okay. We'll see what happens with him. Carrasco's been awful. They really have no depth. You know, Peterson's not that good. McGill's horrible. He's been even worse in AAA somehow. The bullpen is awful. Outside of Robertson, who's been really good. Brooks Raley's been very good. Now, you know, Alvio's been okay. Brett Harkin's getting called up's been pretty good. Other than that, you know, Drew Smith sucks. Dominic Leone's not that good. There's a bunch of other minor leaguers they have. And offensively, they have not been that good. Outside of Brandon Nimmo, Tommy Pham, and Francisco Alvarez, no one's really had that great a year. Alonso's red hot right now, but he was just coming up a huge slump. Lindor has been up and down this year. McNeil's not had a good year. Marte's not had a good year. Conrad's not a good year. Beatty's been meh. From the past, he's a rookie, but overall, he's had his ups and downs for sure. Hasn't been great. You know, Vogelbach hasn't been that good. Like, I doubt this team is going to make the playoffs. They're 7 games out of the wild card right now. You know, we'd like to get a little bit more to get. I don't mind that they're 2 guys in rookie balls. So far, they've been pretty good. But you get back a shortstop and a catcher. The Mets have Lindor. So what you want about Lindor? He is a really good player. And whether you like it or not, he's got, 8 or 9 years left on his contract at $34 million a year. No one's going to play shortstop consistently for the Mets for at least another 5 or 6 years, if not another 8 or 9 years. So, you know, and they already have Ryan Mauricio, who's about to come up probably somewhat soon. You know, they're trying to get him acclimate to second base. They've tried him in left field. You know, and then, you know, it's why you got like the guy Alec Ramirez, whatever his name is, who they have in the minor. At this point, to me, is a trade piece. They don't have a spot for him. You know, Ryan Mauricio is ahead of him in the pecking order, and Ronaldo Hernandez is the catcher. Francisco Alvarez is National Rookie of the Year candidate at 21 years old. He's the catcher. He's the catcher of the future. There's no doubt about it. And you know that's why, like Kevin Pereira is their top prospect, one of the major league's best prospects overall. Well, they drafted him in the first round a year or 2 ago. I think at this point he's just trade bait. And so I don't know why you run another catcher. Like no one's gonna play catcher consistently. That's beside Francisco Alvarez for a very, very long time. based off what we see from Alvarez in his rookie season. So, wish they had gotten some pitching prospects opposed to a shortstop and a catcher. They don't really need shortstop or a catcher, but they're in rookie balls. They're probably not going to be ready for another 3 to 5 years. So you never know. Maybe you end up moving Vargas to second base, and then an opening happens. Maybe Hernandez gets moved. Maybe the Mets a DH or still don't have a set DH, and he can DH for them. Who knows? But wish they got a little bit better return. But the guys in rookie ball, I do think are promising, despite them not filling positional needs. You never know. They're still so young, and at this point, you can't blame them at Mets for selling. Robertson's had a really good year. He's a very good back-end reliever, but he's a rental. He's a free agent at the end of the season. There's a good chance he's not going to be on the Marlins in 2024. You weren't going to get a top. Everyone wants one of the top 100 pipeline guy for Robertson. For a guy who's in his late 30s, has had a lot of arm issues. Only a couple of years ago, domestic. Excuse me. Let's give him a $10 million contract at the season this past off season. We're about 60% through the season. So you think he's got maybe $4 million left. You're gonna pay $4 million a guy, basically $2 million a month for the rest of the season. For him to be one of your best relievers and then leave. I don't think you were getting a top 100 guys. So I don't think return was bad, but could have been better, but it wasn't bad either. Marlins also made another minor move. They swapped Dylan Floro and Jorge Lopez. They send Dylan Floro to Minnesota. The Jorge Lopez goes to Miami. I do think it makes sense for both sides. A minor trade. Floro's the guy who the last couple of years has pitched really well for the Marlins. Last year, I think, had 30 saves. Hasn't had a good year this year. In 43 games, a 4.54 ERA, 41 strikeouts and 39 2/3, a 1.48 WHIP with 7 saves. But he's a free agent at the end of the season. Miami is right there in the playoff picture, so obviously they're buying. Being said, Floro is not a big part of their bullpen, hasn't been this year, probably isn't going to be the way he was pitching at all this season. He's going to be a free agent. Minnesota is in buy mode since they're in first place for now, trying to hold off the Cleveland Guardians in the American League Central. To pick up a reliever that maybe could help them in some way, shape, or form down the stretch. And Lopez is a guy who last year, before we traded along with Baltimore, was lights out, one of the best relievers in the American League. Baltimore traded him to Minnesota. He wasn't great with down the stretch last year, and he's not been good this year. 37 games, ERA over 5. Only 27 strikeouts and 35 in the third, 1.27 WHIP. Only 3 saves this year. But he showed last year he's got a chance to be a dominant reliever. He's got a couple years left of arbitration. Now, it's Miami, a reliever from Miami, a team that, yes, they're in win-down mode right now, but they're still really young. He might not help them get to the playoffs right now, but you never know. Maybe he can turn it around, and he's a young reliever that the Marlins can evaluate. So that's pretty much all the trades that happened. A couple of really tiny ones. The Braves got Pierce Johnson for Victor Volunteer, their 10th best prospect, Taylor Hearn. They also took one out last week in Tanner Gordon. The Dodgers picked up Kike Hernandez, who has not had a good year this year, but he plays a lot of different positions. He was with the Dodgers for 6 seasons before going to the Red Sox. He won a World Series in 2020 with them. He goes back to the Dodgers to get Nick Robinson, who's like a fringe reliever in the MLB level, and Justin Hagen, who's a minor league reliever. He goes the other way. So those are pretty much all the trades. Cleveland Guardians starting pitcher Shane Bieber is probably going to be out until September, they're saying. Hasn't had his best year this year, 3.7 ERA. 95 strikeouts, 117 innings, but he's still a very good starting pitcher this year. He's going to be out until September. That's why he's probably not going to get traded now because he's hurt. Speaking of the Mets trading David Robinson, Max Scherzer, that after the game last night where he pitched well and the Mets won, he says he was not happy with the Mets trading him, says he has to have a conversation with the front office now. So could lead to him being traded. Heard Verlander might get moved. He been pitching better. Apparently the Dodgers want him. Here, Texas is interested. Houston's interested. He's making $4 million next year. He's already 4 years old. We'll see what happens there. Probably he wants to stay with the Mets, so we shall see. The Mets are also going to be on. By the way, they're honoring Bartolo Colon at Citi Field on September 17th. He's officially retiring. Honestly, I'm still not convinced he's not better than Carlos Carrasco right now. Just saying. Carrasco's been very bad. But yeah, but in all seriousness, I'm very happy that Big Sexy gets his retirement ceremony. Now, only MLB news I got is Rob Manfred extended to 2028. It's not good news, but what are you gonna do? The Cardinals starting pitcher Miles Michaels 2 games ago. Through Ian Happ got suspended for 5 games. What happened was Happ swung and missed to the pitch, and on the backswing, he hit the Cardinals catcher Wilson Contreras in the back of the head. It shook him up. He came out of the game, but as he was walking off the field, Happ and Contreras kind of like hugged, kind of like Happ apologizing to Contreras for hitting with his bat. Pretty everything was good, but then Mike was clearly threw at him. It was very unnecessary. It was clearly an accident. And I think it was the right move. He got 5 games, and their manager, Ali Mama, got a 1-game suspension. The rule is when a pitcher throws out a batter, the manager gets a 1-game suspension automatically. That's the MLB's rule. Because the whole thing is like they may or may not, they probably told him to do it. So that's the rule. And speaking of, I mentioned the Cubs may not sell, so Yankees might not get their guy, but even if the Yankees struggling, they are expected to buy. Heard they want another corner outfielder, looking for an upgrade in left field. Because the lefters right now are Jake Bowers and Billy McKinney, who aren't great. McKinney's been okay. Bowers and they definitely need a big bat. Heard looking for another catcher of Jose Trevino after the season. So you got Kyle Hikishio, who's a good defender, but not like a hitter, and Ben Werfer, who's just awful. Apparently, they want another starter. The rotation behind Cole, like I mentioned, is not that good. And the one that are bullpen with their bullpen struggling. So they have a lot of things they want. And they haven't done anything yet. I heard Cashman could make some moves in the final hours for trade deadline. So we'll see what happens. Moving on to hockey, Eva Samsonov got a 1-year deal worth $3.5 million through arbitration from the Toronto Maple Leafs. He had a strong year last year with the Leafs, but they signed to a 1-year deal. 27-10-5, 2.33 GAA, 919 save percentage. Wasn't great in the playoffs, but he overall did have a good year, so he resigns to be Toronto's goalie again next year. Also, they're sending their GM Jim Dill through 2026. He could get some extra 2 years. He's done a good job there. Patrice Bergeron, he officially retired from the NHL after 19 seasons. An incredible career. 1,294 career games. He had over 1,000 points, 427 career goals. 6-time Selke Trophy winner. That is the trophy given out to the best defensive forward in hockey. He won a Stanley Cup with the Bruins, won a King Clancy Trophy for I think it's the best sportsmanship trophy in hockey. Definitely a future Hall of Famer. He had a great career. I hate the Bruins, but Bergeron is definitely a future Hall of Fame player. After 19 seasons, he has retired. The current Hurricanes extends Sebastian Aho 8 years, $78 million. He gets a big deal. Aho, last year at 36 goals. He's one of the best young players in hockey now. Surprise. And I was suddenly on Vladimir Tarasenko, 1 year, $5 million. I think that's a good deal. I think it was a little older. Last year, 18 goals, 32 assists, 50 points between the Blues and the Rangers last year. Still a good player, and Ottawa makes a big pickup there. Hoping he'll play some of the production from Alex DeBrincat, who they traded to Detroit earlier in the offseason. Onto the NBA. Michael Jordan has officially sold the Charlotte Hornets. He sells them to Rick Schnall and late Gabe Plotkin after 13 seasons. The vote was nearly unanimous. Actually, the only owner who voted against it was James Dolan, the Knicks owner, but he's an awful owner, so who cares what he thinks, to be honest. MJ's out. The Hornets did not win a single playoff series in his 13 seasons there. As great as he was as a player, he's the greatest NBA player of all time as an owner. did not have nearly the same success. Like I said, did not win a single playoff series as the owner of the Hornets in 13 seasons. They're absolutely awful, but he's moved on. He bought it for a little under $1 billion. He sold it, I think, for like $2 billion or something, couple billion. So he made like over a couple 100% more back. So he doesn't like he needs the money, Jordan. He's a multi-billionaire, but he got another couple billion for the Hornets. But he's out, so we're discussing young pieces. The backcourt of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller appears to be promising. Got some young players. We'll see what they do from here on out. The Celtics extended Jaylen Brown 5 years, $304 million for Jaylen Brown, making him the highest paid NBA player ever. Jaylen Brown last year averaged 26 points, almost 7 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 49% from the field, 33% from 3, 76% from the line. Okay, look. I can't stand the Celtics. I know a bunch of Celtics fans who I'm like, that's overpay. I tell them, oh, it's an overpay. They're like, well, he's you're paying him to be number 2, and he was like, well, he'd be number 1 on our teams, whatever. Jaylen Brown is not worth $60+ million a year. In 5 years from now, he's going to make over $69 million a year in the 5th year of that contract. That being said, the new CBA is absolutely awful. I watched Austin Rivers, the next NBA player, was on a pocket. He made some really good points. Because of the new CBA rules, guys are either making like $50 million or $2 million, and he is absolutely correct. The new CBA, you either give a guy a super max extension or the veteran minimum. He mentioned there's a lot of guys playing on the veteran minimum, and he's right. There are so many dudes that are playing on the veteran minimum, which is worth $2.3 million, who probably shouldn't be. You got mediocre dudes making $20+ million a year. For example, Dillon Brooks, who, yes, he's a really good defender, but not a good shooter, not an efficient scorer, a complete head case to deal with. Is a distraction on and off the court. Got $80 million over 4 years from Houston Rockets free agency. Russell Westbrook, who is not nearly what he once was, but as bad as most of the Lakers, did play pretty well as a 6th man with the Clippers, got 2 years, $8 million. And Russell Westbrook is like a 10-time All-Star. He got $4 million a year. After playing decently well. I'm not a Westbrook guy, but he played pretty well off the bench. I think he could be a decent 6th man for another few years to end his career with the Clippers. And Dillon Brooks, who isn't horrible, he's a really good defender. But, he can score a little bit, but not a good shooter. He's, his antics are definitely a distraction for another team. Gets $80 million compared to Westbrook got $8 million. Come on. So Celtics were either like, all right, we either vastly overpay him, or they lose him next year when he's free agency, or you wait a year and you have to pay him even more. As I said, my issue with Tatum and Brown, they're both phenomenal players. Tatum is at least a top 7 player in the league to me, if not top 5 player in the league. Brown's a fantastic player, a top 20 to 25 player in the league. Cam will give you 30 and 8, will shoot the ball really well, great defender. Jaylen Brown can give you 26, 27, 6, 7 boards, 4, 5 assists. Pretty good shooter, really good defender. But for good dudes, you saw Jason Tatum. He had the thing he was talking to like some youth basketball players, talking about how he doesn't like load management. Something, we're playing Charlotte, I'm not going to play tonight. Or will somebody pay to come see me? I only play here twice a year. Older great players don't do that. You see Jaylen Brown, who he said he wants he has a big plan of giving back to the community in Boston. Both great guys. They're not causing any distractions like a Kyrie Irving or Dillon Brooks is. But they're so similar to each other. Their games don't like bounce off each other. So that's why I feel like I'm not sure if they can win a championship together. For example, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, their games match perfectly. You have Jokic, who's a big guy who can shoot, he can dribble, and then you have Murray, who just is really good handles, assassin from three. Their games they work, they're perfect complements for each other. To me, Tatum and Brandon are so similar. They're both really good scorers, both pretty good 3-point shooters, both great defenders, and their games are so similar. They basically play the same position. They're both. Brown's a little more of a 2-guard. Tatum's maybe a little more of a small forward, just because Tatum's a little bit bigger than Brown by probably a couple of inches. Most of they don't have good chemistry. I think they do. They appear to be good friends off the court. Also, did you see Jaylen Brown in the playoffs? Did you see what that man did? He was not good. He couldn't use his left hand. He gave him $300 million. That's my issue with it. So you're paying the guy went out and did that in the playoffs, and he gave him $304 million. Come on. And whether or not you think, he'd be a number one on our team or not, at the end of the day, he's a number two. I'm still got $300 million. I would have at least looked to trade him, see what you could have got, and before doing it. But it is what it is. He's now Boston Celtic for the next 5 years at a very high price. You got we got news Atlanta Hawks center Clint Capella and Portland Trailblazers center Jesus Nurkic are apparently on the block. Capella last year averaged 12 points and 11 rebounds, shot 65% from the field from Atlanta. Nurkic averaged last year 13 and 9, 51% from the field, 36 from three. Only played 52 games because he's always hurt. Those two guys are on the trade block. We'll see what happens. Speaking of trades, Damian Lillard, of course, requested a trade. Specifically to the Heat, the NBA players, the NBA has warned Damian Lillard, his agent, and the NBA Players Association that statements that Damian Lillard recently made saying, if I'm not traded to the Heat, I will not report to training camp, will result to discipline. They have sat down and had a conversation about this with Dame and his agent. Honestly, kudos to the NBA. I don't mind Dame requesting a trade. They haven't given him enough help. But to do it like this is just pathetic. He's being a bitch, honestly. He is. He requested a trade specifically to the team that was just in the finals. Not only that, he will only play for that team, he said. Agent said, "Oh yeah, I never said that. I never said he would never perform what's expected of him based off his player contract if he's not traded to the Heat." Okay, dude, he's just trying to backtrack now. Kudos to the NBA. For example, if Dame was traded to the Utah Jazz, if he doesn't report, that I'm gonna absolutely lose it. He does not have no trade clause. He should be traded to whoever the heck gives Portland Trailblazers the best return. If that's Miami, he'll be there. If that's Philly, he'll be there. If that's Utah, he'll be there. If that's New Orleans, he'll be there. So kudos to the NBA. On to college football, former Northwestern quarterback Lloyd Yates has filed a lawsuit against the school. He's the first former player to file a lawsuit when it comes to the hazing allegations. So we'll see if any more do so, but hopefully this is the correct discipline is handed down for whatever comes of that situation. Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh is expected to be suspended the first 4 games for making false statements about recruiting violations in 2021 during a dead COVID period, because during COVID you couldn't do any recruiting because of the COVID. He lied to the NCAA about what they actually did. So their schedule was beyond easy. I think they put UNLV and Eastern Michigan. They don't eat. It's before they play Michigan State, who's not that good, but they're arch rival. Well before they play Ohio State, of course, the two Big Ten juggernauts. But he'll spend the first 4 games. Is what it is, but Michigan, I doubt it goes worse than 4 now. Their teams they're playing are god awful, and Michigan's the top 5 team in the country. So the Big 12 is shaping up to be a lot different between this year and next year. Colorado is leaving the Pac-12 after the season and will join the Big 12. So Houston, BYU, UCF, and Cincinnati just joined the Big 12. They're going to have 14 teams this year, but they're going to be 13 next year. Next year, Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC, but Colorado will join. Colorado was in the Big 12 from 1995 to 2010. Since they joined the Pac-12 in 2011, they have just 3 winning seasons, so they're going back to the Big 12 next year. NFL training camp's underway. Couple injuries. Naheem Hines, the Bills' backup running back, he's a good pass catcher and a really good returner. He's out for the season for torn ACL and jet skiing, so that's a tough way to get injured. Broncos pass rusher Ioma Uwazurki, who I've never even heard of until this news came out. He has only 17 tackles last year. Was suspended indefinitely for gambling, and Sean Payton called the NFL for it. I'm not really sure exactly what happened with that one, but I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. If you bet on the NFL, no matter where you are, how it's done, you should get at least a year suspension. That's way too close to is the game's rigged? Is he going to throw the game? If you bet on another sport, I don't think it matters. Even if you're at the team facility, I don't think it matters. If after a long practice, a long day of training camp, if a player gets on their phone in the locker room or in the whatever hangout room, hanging out with their teammates after practice before they head home for the day, or head to the gym for like a post-practice workout, and they place a bet on a hockey game, I don't know why it's a problem. I don't see how it's an issue. I just don't. But especially since the NFL partners with all these sports books, FanDuel, DraftKings, you name it. Got Anthony Richardson's signed his rookie deal with the Colts. He got 4 years, $34 million. CJ Stroud got $36.3 million from the Houston Texans. The Raiders officially signed Marcus Peters, 1 year, $5 million. Still a pretty good corner when he's healthy. And the Giants signed Saquon. Not the deal he wanted. So he got a franchise. Also, he didn't sign his tab, but they signed him to a deal worth up to $11 million. He's got, I think the base salary is the 10.1, which is as much as the franchise tab. He's got $2 million. $2 million of it is a signing bonus. It's up to $11 million. He can make an extra $910,000 if he has 1,350 rushing yards. The Giants make the playoffs. He has 65 catches and ended up with 11 touchdowns. So, the next Saquon thought, I'm not getting a long-term deal. Single season, Le'Veon Bell has shown that's not a good idea. So, he really had no choice. The Saints signed Jimmy Graham. So he made the Pro Bowl 5 times with the Saints, emerged as one of the best tight ends in the league. Hasn't been quite the same since. Didn't even play last year. Last time he was in the league with the Bears 2 years ago, had just 14 catches. But he's trying to come back, and he signed with the Saints on a 1 year deal. Also signed Troy Turner. From a Pro Bowl guard, is not near the same, but still an okay guard. And also signed him. So 1 year deal. Dallas Cowboys, they locked up star corner Trevon Diggs on a 5-year extension worth $97 million. Last year, 3 picks, 14 pass defenses, 59 tackles, and the fumble recovery. 2 years ago, he had a weird year. Led the league in picks, but also gave up the most receiving yards. Last year was much better in coverage along with the ball hawking skills. So they give him a long-term extension. Seahawks extend Uchenna Nwosu, one of their pass rushers, 3 years, $59 million, $32 million guaranteed. He had a really good year last year, 9.5 sacks, 66 tackles, 2 fumble recoveries, and 4 pass defenses. The Bears, they extended their tight end, Cole Kmet, 4 years and $50 million. Last year, 50 catches, 544 yards, and 7 touchdowns. A couple O-linemen got big deals. Giants gave their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, from our top 4 pick a few years ago, a big deal. 5 years, $117 million. $67 million guarantees, developed into one of the best O-linemen in the game. You got Texans extending Titus Howard, 3 years, $56 million, $36 $36.5 million guarantees. He's been the right tackle for the last 4 years. He's pretty good. Aaron Rodgers restructured his deal. He got it's now 2 years. For 2 years, $75 million, fully guaranteed. Took a $35 million pay cut this year. After almost using Green Bay, never taking a pay cut. Every year, something he wanted to raise. Took a $35 million pay cut in his first year with the Jets. That's crazy. So hopefully Aaron Rodgers is serious and he wants to play more than the year. Texans cleared John Mitchell for camp. Really good news. Second round pick out of Alabama last year. Didn't play last year because he had leukemia, but he's fully recovered and he's all ready to go. So kudos to him. The 49ers they cleared Brock Purdy for camp. So that's good news coming off Tommy John surgery. Last year played fantastic. 9 games and 5 starts. Completed 7% of his passes for over 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns against 4 picks. If he was healthy, didn't get hurt in the conference championship games. 49ers, I think, may have him a Super Bowl. And Nick Bosa is holding out. One of the best pass rushers in all football. So 18.5 sacks, 51 tackles, 2 forced fumbles. I'm ready for the player of the year. He wants a new contract. I do think they're going to get that done, but he's holding out right now. As is Chris Jones, who appears him and the Chiefs are kind of far apart. So maybe the second best defensive tackle in football, because he's in the last year of his deal. He's in $19 million, but he sees Dexter Lawrence get 4 for $90. He saw Jeffrey Simmons get a big deal. Quinn Williams got 4 for $96. So he wants his bag as well. Joe Burrow got hurt in training camp. It looked bad at first. He was carted off, but I said it's a strained calf. He's out several weeks, so it could have been worse, but he's going to be out for a little bit. So hopefully he's ready about the start of the season. Jalen Ramsey had knee surgery. At first, they thought it was like a minor procedure. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. He'll miss maybe the first month of the season. He had a full meniscus tear. He had like a bigger operation than we thought. He's going to be out for a few months. He probably is out until December, so he won't be out. He'll be out until the back half of the season, but he will be there for the playoff part. But to me, this is a big loss for the Dolphins, who gave a third round pick to get him. I think Ramsey is overrated a little bit by people. I don't think he's as good as he was, but I still think he's a top 10 corner in the league. Dolphins secondary struggled last year. They brought him in to help that, and now he won't be there until for the first 3 months of the season or so. So I think it's a pretty big loss for the Dolphins, but he's out until December. We saw Jonathan Taylor and Colts owner Jim Irsay were kind of going out on social media. Irsay, he gave his thoughts on like the running back market thing. He said, basically said, the CBA that was negotiated that they chose that the players agreed to. It is what it is. Kind of, it's basically saying it's up to the agents for negotiating and to not negotiate in bad faith, basically. And then Jonathan Taylor basically said, basically like, or not paying your star player is also an issue because he wants a long-term deal. And they asked her, like, is there any like bad blood between you two? He said, not really. We haven't talked contract at all. So Taylor didn't even get an extension. And apparently they're not and there were reports coming up from ESPN that Jonathan Taylor and the Colts their relationship is unraveling and everything is on the table right now. So we shall see what happens. But the Seahawks signed Devin Witherspoon to his rookie deal for $31.8 million to the entire 2023 NFL draft class is now under contract. Dalvin Cook is visiting the Jets, and Cook says there's a pretty high chance that he signs. He's visiting them this weekend. I hope they sign him. He's still a top 10 back in the league, in my opinion. Had over 1,100 yards last year. One of 4 backs with 4 straight 1,100-yard rushing seasons. If Breece Hall coming off an injury, I think that'd be a great pickup. And the Minnesota Vikings are going to trade Daniel Hunter, their Pro Bowl edge rusher, who had 10 sacks last year, as they have failed to come to a contract extension. Only other thing I want to talk about is the 3M Open is currently going on for the PGA Tour. Hodges right now leads at 16 under par. Took another day of it. The next tournament is the Wyndham Championship. Will be August 3rd to 6th at the Sedgefield Country Club in Greensboro, North Carolina. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long. Have a great day.